Vamos a recibir al doctor Joe Dispenza.
Hello. Hi. I want you to turn to the person next to you. I want you to look them in the eye, and I want you to introduce yourself as a genius. Let's begin. Now, this weekend is about you. It's an opportunity for you to retreat from your lives for just a few days and to remove the constant stimulation in your external environment that reminds you of who you think you are as a personality. To separate yourself from the people you know and the places you go and the things that you do at the exact same time every single day, long enough for you to be reminded of what you already know. And that is that you are the creator of your life. And all of the speakers this weekend will be delivering information and knowledge to you. And every time you learn something new, you make new connections in your brain. That's what learning is. Learning is forging new synaptic connections. So the philosophical, theoretical information that you learn, some people will leave this weekend and apply it to their lives. They'll personalize it. They'll do something with it. And if you can get your behavior to match your intentions, if you can get your actions equal to your thoughts, if you can get your mind and body working together, you're going to have a new experience. And when you have a new experience enriches more circuits in your brain. And the moment those neurons string into place, the brain makes a chemical. And that chemical is called a feeling or an emotion. And the moment you feel inspired, the moment you feel unlimited, the moment you feel joyful, now you are teaching your body chemically to understand what your mind has intellectually understood. And we can say that knowledge is for the mind and experience is for the body. And in that moment, you are embodying the truth of that philosophy. And you're beginning to rewrite your genetic program, chemically instructing your body to understand what your mind has intellectually understood. But if you've done it once, it means you should be able to do it again. And when you can repeat any experience over and over again, you're going to neurochemically condition your mind and body to begin to work as one. And when you've done something so many times that your body now knows how to do it as well as your mind, now it's innate in you. It's second nature. It's easy, it's familiar. It's who you are. You've done it so many times that you no longer have to consciously think about it. It's part of your state of being. So our job then is to go from philosopher to initiate to master, from mind to body to soul, from knowledge to experience to wisdom, to learning it with your head, applying it with your hands, and knowing it by heart. And to go from thinking to doing to being. And you and I have all the biological and neurological machinery to do this. And I can stand up here and tell you that common people around the world are doing the uncommon. They're healing themselves from very serious health conditions. Some of them genetic disorders that medical science had no solution for. They're creating new jobs, new opportunities, new careers, new relationships. They're healing from childhood scars and wounds, and they're having mystical experiences that transcend language. And they look just like you. And this is a time in history where it's not enough to know. This is a time in history to know how. So let me ask you, how many people in this audience believe in the idea that the way you think has some effect on your life? Come on, let me see. So then I have another question for you. How many people in this audience actually woke up this morning and created a future? You know why most people don't do it? Because you don't believe it's true. See, if you knew that your thoughts created your reality, if you knew that on a gut level, you would never miss a day in creating the life you wanted. And you would never let any thought slip by your awareness that you did not want to experience. So think of this. You think 60 to 70,000 thoughts in one day. And 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts as the day before. So if you just told me that you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your life, if 90% of your thoughts are the same as the day before, would you agree that your life isn't going to change very much? Because the same thoughts always lead to the same choices. The same choices always lead to the same behaviors. The same behaviors create the same experiences. And the same experiences produce the very same emotions. And your biology, your neurocircuitry, your neurochemistry, your hormones, and even your genetic expression is equal to how you think, how you act, and how you feel. And how you think, how you act, and how you feel is called your personality. And your personality creates your personal reality. That's it. That's it. So the present personality who's sitting here today, called you, has created the present personal reality called your life. Yes or no? Come on, commit. So then if you wanted to create a new personal reality, a new life, you would have to change your personality. Yes or no? Which means you'd have to start thinking about what you've been thinking about and change it. Yes or no? You'd have to become conscious of your unconscious habits and behaviors and modify them. Yes or no? And then, Mexico, you're going to have to look at those emotions that keep you connected to your past. And you're going to have to decide, do these emotions belong in my future? You see, most people try to create a new personal reality as the same personality, and it doesn't work. You literally have to become someone else. How many people understand? Come on. So then, there's a principle in neuroscience that says that nerve cells that fire together wire together. So if you keep thinking the same thoughts, making the same choices, demonstrating the same behaviors, creating the same experiences that stamp the same networks of neurons into the same patterns, all for the familiar feeling called you. And I don't know, let's be conservative. Let's say you've done that for the last 20 years. Would you agree if you keep firing and wiring those circuits in the same ways, in the same patterns, you're going to begin to hardwire your brain into a very finite signature? And that finite signature is called your identity, your personality. And by the time you're 35 years old, you become a set of memorized behaviors, emotional reactions, unconscious habits, hardwired attitudes, beliefs, perceptions that function just like a computer program. You hit play and it runs. So I assert that if you're not being defined by a vision of the future, then you're left with the memories of the past and nothing's going to change in your life. Your brain is organized to reflect everything you know in your life. Your brain is a record of the past. It's an artifact of everything you've learned and experienced to this moment. Most people wake up in the morning, and what's the first thing they do? They wake up in the morning and they think about all the problems that they have in their life. And all of those problems are memories that are connected to people and things at certain times and places. And the moment they're remembering their problems, they're thinking in the past. Yes or no? Come on. And every one of those problems has an emotion connected to it. And the moment they start thinking of their boss or their coworker or their sister-in-law, every one of those memories has an emotion. And all of a sudden, they start feeling unhappy. They start feeling frustrated. They start feeling negative. And now, how you think and how you feel creates your state of being. And thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body. And most people start their entire day with their entire state of being in the past. And now they'll be predictable in their life because the familiar past craves the predictable future. Come on, are you with me? So then, the moment they feel unhappy, they feel frustrated, their body is their unconscious mind. It does not know the difference between an experience in their life that creates an emotion and an emotion that they're creating by thought alone. And the body's believing it's in the same past experience, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And those emotions influence more of the same thoughts, and those same thoughts produce the same chemicals and the same emotions, and the brain checks in with the body and says, yup, she's feeling pretty unhappy. Let's think more unhappy thoughts. And if you can't think greater than how you feel, or feelings have become the means of thinking, then you're thinking in the past. And if you just told me that you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, you keep creating more of your past. How many people are with me? And the repetition of this cycle of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking conditions the body to become the mind of that emotion. And now the body literally is in the past. And you can't create a new future holding on to the emotions of the past. So then what do people do after that? Now they say, yep, I'm feeling pretty unhappy. I'm feeling pretty negative. I feel like myself again. And then they reach over and they grab their cell phone. And then they check their WhatsApp. Then they check their texts. Then they check their Facebook. Then they take a picture of their feet and they post it on Facebook. Then they tweet and they Twitter. Then they check one email, then the other email. Then they do a little Instagram. Then they check the news. And now they're connected to everything known in their life. All the people, all the things, all the problems, all the places, and time itself. And now they're caught up in their known familiar reality. Are you with me still? And then here we go. They sleep on the same side of the bed. They get up the same way. They scratch themselves. They yawn. They pet the cat. And then they have the thought of the toilet. And their body follows their mind right to the toilet. And then they go through a series of unconscious behaviors. And then, when they finish, they have the vision of the coffee maker. And then their body follows their mind right to the coffee maker. And then they grab their favorite mug. Nobody drinks coffee out of that mug but them. And then they go through a series of routine behaviors. They drink the coffee. They feel better. Then they have the thought of the shower. And their body follows their mind right to the shower. They go through a series of unconscious behaviors that same as yesterday. They get out of the shower, they have the creative vision of what they're going to wear. The next thing you know, they're dressed. And their body is always following their mind, but it's always to the same known reality. And people do this over and over again every single day. And now their body is on a program, and it's dragging them into a predictable future based on what they did in the past. And they just lost their free will to a program. And now they're headed for a genetic destiny. And people have to wait for crisis or trauma or disease or diagnosis or loss to finally make up their mind to change. And my message is, why wait? Why wait? That you can learn and change in a state of pain and suffering, or you can learn and change in a state of joy and inspiration. Which would you choose? So then think about this. If you keep thinking the same thoughts that make the same chemicals for you to feel the same way, and those feelings keep influencing your same thoughts, which makes the same chemicals for you to feel the same way, and you do that over and over again, and you're conditioning your body to become the mind of that emotion, and your body's in the past, then would you agree then to change is to be greater than your body? Yes or no? And if your body has been programmed into a predictable future because you do the same exact thing as you did yesterday, then you would have to agree with me then that you would have to find the present moment in order for your body not to live in the predictable future or the familiar past. Yes or no? And if you're not being defined by a vision of the future every single day and remembering that future, don't you know the moment you open your eyes and you see the same people and you go to the same places and you do the exact same things at the exact same time, it's no longer that your personality is creating your personal reality. Now your personal reality is creating your personality. And your environment is controlling how you think and feel. And every person, everything, every place, every experience in your known life has a neurological network tied to it because you've experienced it. And every person, everything, every place, every experience has an emotion connected to it because emotions are the end product of past experiences. So then most people, they come back to their senses and they see their boss, and their boss causes them to think of them in the past, and they judge their boss. And now they're in the past. They see their coworker, they compete with their coworker. The moment they see the coworker, it triggers those thoughts and those emotions, and now their environment is controlling how they think and feel. And you would say to that person, why are you so unhappy? Why do you feel so bad today? And they'll say, oh, it's because of this person or this circumstance or this thing. And all that means is now they are victims to their lives because their environment is controlling how they think and feel. To change, to truly change, is to be greater than your environment, to be greater than the circumstances in your life, to be greater than the conditions in your world that you've created. And every great person in history knew this. And so then, going through a series of routine behaviors every single day, doing the same thing as you did yesterday, would you agree that we could take your yesterday and lift it up and set it on your tomorrow? You know what that's called? That's called karma. That's it. That's it. You're just experiencing the same day over and over again. But there's no unseen hand doing it to you. It's you that are making the same choices. And in fact, The hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. And the moment you decide to make a different choice, get ready. Because it's going to feel unfamiliar. It's going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be some uncertainty. You're not going to be able to predict the next moment because you've just left the known and now you're in the unknown. And most people, if they can't predict their future and their body has been conditioned to be the mind, and the body's been used to complaining and blaming and making excuses and feeling sorry for yourself because you've mastered that over the last 20 years, and all of a sudden you're going to stop. What do you think the body's going to say? Body's going to say, well, you think you're the mind, but I'm actually the mind. So let's get back to business as usual. So the body starts influencing the mind. And it says, start tomorrow. You'll never change. It's too hard. You'll never be successful. You're too much like your mother. It's your father's fault. This doesn't feel right. And you know, the moment you hear that voice in your head, that thought, and you respond to it as if it's true, the same thought will lead to the same choice, which will lead to the same behavior, which will create the same experience, which will produce the same emotion, and then people say, this feels right. No, that feels familiar. Going from the old self to the new self is the neurological, the biological, the chemical, the hormonal, the genetic death of the old self. And you have to cross a river from the old self to the new self. And that unknown, that void, is the perfect place to create in. And people will say to me, I'm in the river of change. I can't predict my future. And I always say the same thing to them. The best way to predict your future is to create it. Not in the known, but in the unknown. What thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain and put your attention behind? What behaviors do you want to demonstrate in one day? And the act of closing your eyes and mentally rehearsing your actions begins to install the neurological hardware in your brain to look like you already did it. Now the brain is no longer a record of the past. Now it's a map to the future. And if you keep reviewing it over and over again, that hardware will become a software program. And who knows? You just may start acting like a happy person. You just must start thinking like a genius. You installed the circuits. Now here's the tough part. Can you teach your body emotionally what that future will feel like before it's made manifest? That means you can't wait for your wealth to feel abundance and worthy. You can't wait for your success to feel empowered. You can't wait for your new relationship to feel love. You can't wait for your healing to give grace and gratitude and thanks and wholeness. You can't wait for the mystical experience to feel awe. That's the old model of reality, of cause and effect. Waiting for something outside of us to change how we feel inside of us, to take away our lack, our emptiness, our fear. That's Newtonian physics, cause and effect. And most people, they spend their whole life living in separation and lack because they're not creating anything new in their life. But the quantum model of reality is about causing an effect, which means the moment you start generating worth and abundance, you are generating wealth. The moment you feel whole and grateful, your healing begins. The moment you're in love with yourself and you're in love with life, you will attract an equal. The moment you're in awe of the moment, you're going to have a mystical experience. And the moment you feel empowered, you are stepping towards your success. And that is causing an effect. And there isn't a person in this room that is so special to be excluded from that phenomenon. In fact, you can't tell me now, can't tell me that you're too old to do this work. Can't tell me that. We have measured over 8,500 brains, and we have elders in this work that know how to change their brain waves and to have a mystical experience, and they're not afraid of it. You can't tell me you're too sick to do this work. You can't tell me that any longer. I've witnessed people with very serious health conditions, stage 4 cancers, reverse those conditions. And guess what? There were days where they didn't feel like doing their meditation. But guess what? They did it anyway. And there were days where they were so afraid because the doctor told them that they were stupid and they were going to die, that they didn't feel like doing their meditation because they were in so much fear. But guess what? They did it anyway. And there were days where they had so much self-doubt because their family was worried about them that they were going to quit. But guess what? They did their meditation that day as well. And there were days they were really busy. And they had to take care of their family. And they could have excused themselves and said, I don't have enough time. But guess what? They did their meditation anyway. And every day they overcame a little bit more of themselves. Overcame until they became someone else. And you can ask that person, where's the disease? And they will tell you, it existed in the old personality. I'm literally somebody else. And they didn't have to visualize anything. They didn't have to see the tumor shrinking. They just became someone else. And their biology changed because they thought differently, they acted differently, and they felt differently. You can't tell me you're too out of shape, too overweight, too underweight to do this work. Can't tell me that. I've seen it on every culture, every size, every shape. You can't even tell me that you're not a good meditator or you never meditated before. In fact, for some people, that's even better. Common people around the world are doing the uncommon. I just came from an event in Sardinia. I never thought in my lifetime I would witness what I've witnessed just this year. There was a woman who was born with a genetic condition from birth. Hardest thing to change. Blind. Only could see 5% her whole entire life. She never saw a face. She only saw shadows and forms. Never saw colors except hints of them. Had an amazing experience. She opened her eyes and she could see. She could see people's faces. She could see the flowers on the stage. You think she was happy? And don't you know that when she stands up in front of an audience and she tells her story, and she just kept saying, I feel like a newborn baby. That's all she kept saying. I'm a newborn. I'm like a newborn baby. Not because she could see, but how she felt. Don't you know when she stands on the stage and she tells her story, and I'm looking out in the audience and everybody's crying? Don't you know that people are relating with her because she doesn't look like a movie star? She doesn't look like a sports figure, and she's not dressed perfectly, and her hair's not perfect, and she's elderly. Don't you know that when you see it right in front of you, she's speaking to you in possibility? And don't you know that the moment that happens, that information is now in the field? That quantum field you're learning about is an invisible field of information. It's in the morphic field now. And other people can tune into that experience because they witnessed it. And they'll say, if someone else can do it, I can do it as well. Would you agree? And just like an infection spreads amongst the community and creates disease, I believe that health and wellness are as infectious as disease. And when you get a group of people together in a community, all are willing to reach outside their comfort zone to do the supernatural, you will witness miracles. You will witness them, and I've witnessed them. And so, great time to be alive. And science has become the contemporary language of mysticism. Thank God that science demystifies the mystical. And when you combine a little quantum physics with a little neuroscience, with a little neuroendocrinology, with a little psychoneuroimmunology, little epigenetics, all of those sciences point the finger at possibility. That you are not doomed by your genes. It's a lie. You're not hardwired to be a certain way for the rest of your life. We are marvels of adaptability and change. Think about this. The stronger the emotional reaction you have to someone or something, the more you pay attention to the cause. Yes or no? Come on. So then if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, think about it. The stronger the emotion you have to the problems in your life and the more you pay attention to them, to that person, it makes sense then that you're giving your power away to that person because you're giving them all of your attention. Yes or no? Now here's my next question. You say to a person, well, gosh, you seem to be a really angry, bitter person. Why are you so angry and bitter? And they'll say, well, I'm angry and bitter because this experience happened to me 5 years ago. 5 years ago. And then they'll tell you the story, the narrative of that experience. Yes or no? Do you know that 50% of what they tell you isn't even the truth? But the latest research in memory says that memory is creative. That 50% of what people talk about in their past isn't even accurate. They make stuff up. That means they're reliving a life they didn't even have. All for the emotion. To reaffirm the fact that they believe that they're stuck and limited. Now here's my question. What if you were able to overcome that emotion and begin to lower the volume to that anger, to that bitterness, to that frustration? Would you agree if you lowered the volume to those emotions, more than likely you would take your attention off the person or the problem? Yes or no? And if you did that properly, you would be disinvesting your energy out of your past, present reality and calling energy back to you and building your own electromagnetic field. Yes or no? And that's energy for you to heal with. That's energy for you to invest in a new future. You know, I tell people all the time, hey, if you're not being defined by a vision of the future, more than likely it just means you're more in love with your past than you are with a future. Yes or no? It means you believe in your past more than you believe in your future. That you are remembering your past more than you're remembering your future. That you're telling the story of your past why don't you tell the story of your future? And isn't it the same biologically in the brain, in the body? Absolutely. So then would you agree then new thoughts should lead to new choices? Yes or no? And new choices should lead to new behaviors. And new behaviors should create new experiences. And new experiences should create new emotions. And new emotions should inspire new thoughts, and that's called evolution. Yes or no? So all of the knowledge you're going to hear this weekend from a great lineup of speakers is not for you to sit at the dinner table and talk about, although that's how you remember things. But it's for you to do something with it. Because when you invest in yourself, you invest in your future. And taking out a little time out of your busy lives to be defined by a vision of the future instead of the memories of the past should begin to produce changes in your life. Why else would we do it? So here's the question. Can you believe in a future that you can't see or experience with your senses yet, but you've thought about enough times in your mind that your brain is literally changed to look like the event has already occurred? Is that possible? Latest research on neuroscience says it absolutely is. And can you select a new potential in the quantum field? And how many potentials exist there? Infinito? Infinite? Can you select a new potential in the quantum field and begin to emotionally embrace that future before it's made manifest? To such a degree that your body, as the unconscious mind, is believing it's living in that future reality in the present moment, and you're signaling new genes and new ways to change your body to look like the experience has already occurred. Is that possible? Come on, there's speakers that are going to talk about epigenetics. The latest research in epigenetics says it's absolutely possible. Now think about this. Come on. There's physical evidence in your brain and body to look like the event, the experience, has already happened by thought alone. This is where you get to relax, because the experience is going to find you. And it's going to come in a way that you least expect. Why? Because if you can expect it, it's nothing new. It's the predictable. It has to rock your world. It has to catch you off guard. It has to surprise you. And it has to leave no doubt that what you did inside of you produced some effect outside of you. And when you correlate the changes you've made inside of you with the effect you produced outside of you, you're going to pay attention to what you did, and you're going to do it again. And you'll believe that you're more of a creator of your life than a victim of your life. Yes or no? And when those coincidences and those opportunities and those serendipities and synchronicities start happening to you, I swear, you will look at your entire past and you won't want to change one thing in your past because it brought you to that moment. And that's the moment the past no longer exists. So then, most people, they have to feel really bad before they make up their mind to change. Do you know why? Because when you're feeling so bad, you don't want to go to dinner with anybody. You don't want to answer any more texts or any emails. You don't want to watch television. You don't want to talk on the phone to your friends. When you reach that point where you no longer feel like yourself, you can finally see yourself for the first time. And you begin to look at yourself through the eyes of someone else. And you begin to pay attention to how you've been thinking. You begin to notice how you're feeling. You begin to become aware of your unconscious habits. And when you're observing those states of mind and body, you're no longer a program. You're the consciousness observing the program, and you begin to objectify your self. Are you with me still? Now think about this. What if every single day you were defined by a vision of the future? And by the way, you already know how to do this. Every single person in this room, at least one time in their life, did something great. You all did. And what happened? I'll tell you what happened. You asked yourself a question, like what would it be like to be wealthy or healthy or free or to get a new job? You asked yourself a question. I call that a frontal lobe question. You turn on the creative center in your brain, and the frontal lobe has connections to the entire brain. And that's the CEO. That's the boss. That's the symphony leader. And it has to answer the question. So it looks out over the landscape of the entire brain, and it says, I only have a certain amount of resources here of things I've learned and things I've experienced. So the frontal lobe gets busy calling up these different circuits in the brain, and it begins to seamlessly piece them together. And you get a vision in your mind. That's called intention. And the more you experience and the more you learn, the more raw materials you have for a greater vision. And some people, when they see that vision, the thought in their mind becomes the experience. And the brain doesn't know the difference between what's going on out there and what's going on in here. And the end product of an experience is called an emotion. And all of a sudden, they start to feel inspired. They start to feel lifted, enthusiastic, entheos, filled with God. Their heart starts to open. They start falling in love with their vision. And now their body is getting a taste of the future emotionally. And when you combine a clear intention with an elevated emotion, thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body. And how you think and how you feel creates your state of being. You're in a whole new state of being. And you can see possibilities you never saw before because you're no longer looking at your future through the lens of the past. And when you've done this, many people start writing down the choices they need to make. They write down the things they have to do. They review them over and over again. They think about their goals and their experiences. And every goal and every experience creates more of those same feelings. And now they're changing their biology. And many people who succeed at this, they take out a piece of paper and they write down the thoughts that they no longer want to think. I can't. I have a headache. I'm too tired. I'll start tomorrow. They become conscious of those unconscious thoughts. So conscious of those unconscious thoughts that they would never let that thought slip by their awareness unchecked during the day. They write down the choices they have to stop making. They review the things they have to stop doing. They remember the experiences with certain people and certain things at times and places they need to stay away from. And they review those emotions that bring them to a lower level. And every day they remind themselves of who they want to be. And every day they remind themselves of who they no longer want to be. And you've all done this. It comes a moment where you know it's going to happen. You just know it's going to happen. And you take your foot off the gas pedal and you relax. And when that experience comes and you enjoy it, you feel more whole. And you're more loving to everybody in your life. You're more patient. You're more present. You're more giving. You're more caring. And you love yourself more and you love life more. That's the side effect of our efforts to create. But think about a time in your life where you had a vision of the future and it didn't happen? What happened then? You got tired. You didn't feel like it. You got too busy. Too many people to take care of. There just wasn't enough time. The body, the environment, and time. And people give up on their dreams. They shrink back into mediocrity. And they find people that do the same. And they use each other to reaffirm their addiction to suffering. And people call that normal. And yet, when you begin to create every single day and take out a little bit of time in your busy lives to do it, you get to experience the fruits of your efforts. Would you agree? Now here's my question. If you finish a really great meditation and your heart is wide open and you feel connected to your future, would you agree that if you felt like your future already happened, you would be less likely to look around to see where it was going to come from because it felt like it already happened? Yes or no? If you got on the freeway or you got in Mexico City traffic and all of a sudden you were feeling really heart-centered and all of a sudden you got in traffic and you're like, hey, get out of the way. Would you agree then you just disconnected from the energy of your future and now you're back to the energy of your past? Yes or no? And you shouldn't expect anything to change in your life because you just lost the fish. And so think about this. Thoughts produce an electrical charge in the quantum field. And feelings produce a magnetic charge. And how you think and how you feel broadcasts an electromagnetic signature that influences every single atom in your life. The thought sends the signal out, and the feeling draws the event back. So here's my question. What are you broadcasting every day? Because if you're walking around with 100 reasons to suffer, and you're really feeling bad, would you agree then you're saying to the quantum field, oh, universal mind, greater intelligence, I'm broadcasting the signature of suffering into my life, and bring me an experience of suffering, but bring it in a way that I least expect, that surprises me and leaves no doubt that it's come from you so I can suffer a little bit more. You see, you're not punished for your sins. You're punished by your sins. And sin is an attitude. And I can tell you, after all these years of doing this, nobody changes until they change their energy. And when you change your energy, you change your life. And so then it's not enough to just connect to a future and then get up and spend the rest of your day being unhappy. Because you just disconnected from the energy of your future and you're back to the energy of your past, and nothing will change in your life. Would you agree? But if you're able to maintain that modified state of mind and body, independent of the conditions in your environment, independent of the people in your life, independent of your body's emotional addiction, independent of time, would you agree if you're able to maintain that your entire day, something weird should happen in your life? That's the law. Yes or no? And can you be 85 and do it? Yes? Can you be rich and do it? Can you be poor and do it? Can you be sick and do it? You see, anybody can do it. And it becomes a skill. And is it possible then? We've measured this. Our students, they know how to open their hearts and they know how to change their energy. Imagine feeling so in love with life that the chemicals in your brain, like oxytocin, the love chemicals, and our students are so elevated when we measure them that it's impossible for them to hold a grudge. They would never trade this feeling for anybody or anything. And that's the beginning of unconditional love, because you can allow everybody to be how they want, and you will experience joy as the side effect of it. And so many people confuse joy and pleasure, and they're not the same thing. Remember, the more whole you feel, the less need for pleasure you'll have. And the less whole you'll feel, the more need for pleasure you'll have. So then, imagine 750 people in a room, all striving to make contact with that field. You tell me that field is invisible, it's energy, and answer this question. How much of your waking day do you put your attention on matter? And how much of your waking day do you put your attention on that invisible field? So most people put all of their attention on their body, on people in their lives, things they have to do, things they own, places they need to go, and time itself. And if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, most people's attention and energy are trapped in this three-dimensional world. And when it's trapped in this 3D world, you have to play by the rules of Newtonian physics. And that means everything you want, you may get, but it's going to take a long time for you to get, because you experience more and more separation from that field. So wouldn't you agree then it would be a good idea that every day, since the environment controls so many people's thoughts and feelings, to start your day by closing your eyes and disconnecting from the environment, to play music in the background or plug your ears so there's less sensory information coming into your brain? Instead of getting up and starting your routine day, that you sit your body down and you tell it, stay. You stay right there. I'm going to feed you. And then we're going to get up and we're going to watch a little TV, and then you can check your texts and you can do all the things. But right now, you're no longer the mind. I'm the mind. And I'll tell you when we get up. And then if your body has been programmed into a predictable future because it's been doing that, or romancing the emotions of the familiar past, and you say, I'm not getting up until my brain and body are in the present moment, would you agree then that's what meditation is? To be defined by thought alone. And if you are going to heal your body by thought alone, if you are going to create some new experience in your reality by thought alone, if you are going to create some new future time that's no longer predictable by thought alone, then you have to become thought alone. And so, meditation then is a way to disconnect from your environment, to get beyond your body, and to no longer be living in the predictable future or the familiar past. And guess what? People, once they understand how to do this, they look forward to doing it. It's not like, God, I got to go create my life today. They're not like that. They've seen the results of their efforts, and they're excited to go. They want to do it. In fact, it's something that they look forward to doing every day, because that's where the magic begins to occur in their lives. And so, I can tell you, after looking at 8,500 brain scans, close to 5,000 HRV monitor measurements, studying genetic changes in human beings in 4 days, witnessing telomeres lengthening in common people in 60 days, getting their life back, extending their life, seeing immune systems upregulate and get stronger in 4 days just by doing the proper type of meditations. I can tell you that you are at your absolute best when you get beyond yourself. Period. Period. It's the law. And so, a little time out of your busy day to be defined by a vision of the future, when you combine that clear intention with an elevated emotion and you're broadcasting a whole new electromagnetic signature, don't you know then that when you're in that state, when you do that properly and you're able to maintain it, it's going to get familiar to you and easier for you? And just like when you are at a lower emotional level that you can see yourself, could you see yourself from an elevated emotional state instead of a limited emotional state? And it's the same exact thing. And so why not choose the elevated emotion? You'll learn this weekend the benefits of opening your heart. We took a group of people, 120 people, look just like you. And I said, okay, we know that stress hormones weaken the immune system. And when enough stress hormones are running in the body, you're utilizing the body's reserves, your energy reserves. And the immune system doesn't have any energy for growth and repair. So we took a group of people and we said, okay, we're going to measure your cortisol levels, your stress hormone levels, and we're going to measure a chemical called IgA, immunoglobulin A. It's the primary defense against bacteria and viruses in your body. It's better than any flu shot. It's your body's natural antiviral, antibacterial. We said, all we want you to do is trade anger, fear, depression, anxiety, shame, guilt, unworthiness, resentment, envy, jealousy, competition, for gratitude, appreciation, kindness, care, compassion, and let's practice opening our hearts. 10 minutes a day, 3 times a day for 4 days. At the end of just 4 days, those people lowered the amount of cortisol in their circulatory system by about 20%. They increased their IgA levels by 50%. Now, if a pharmaceutical company found a drug that could strengthen your immune system like that, it would be on every television commercial. And yet your nervous system is the greatest pharmacist there is. Now think about gratitude for a minute. Think about it. When do you give thanks? When you get something, right? When you receive something. When you're receiving or in the process of getting something, you say thank you and you feel it. So the emotional signature of gratitude means it's already happened. The emotional signature of gratitude means you're receiving something. So when you begin to feel grateful, your body is believing that the experience has already occurred. And if you keep doing that over and over again, you're less likely to try to wish for it, want it, try to make it happen, force it, control it, because you'll feel like that future has already occurred. The worst thing that could happen to you when you feel gratitude is that you can heal. That's the worst that could happen to you. So the word meditation means to become familiar with. That's what it means. And the more familiar you are with your unconscious thoughts, the more aware you are of your automatic behaviors, and the more familiar you are with your emotional states, that is the process to know thyself. And if you're firing and wiring new thoughts, and you're demonstrating certain behaviors, and you're doing it over and over again, and you're trading guilt for joy, and you're doing it over and over every single day, it's going to begin to become familiar to you and natural and easy. And people will say to you, Juanito, did you change your medications? You seem way too happy. Did you get a facelift? Something's different about you. What's up? No? No. Wow, you just seem different. And people will start to notice that you're different because you're showing up unpredictable to them. You're not the same person. All of a sudden, you're showing up as an unknown. That's a good sign. So now, the biggest reason that people give up on their dreams, stop creating the lives that they want, is because of the hormones of stress. And stress is when your brain and body are knocked out of homeostasis. Stress is when your brain and body are knocked out of balance. The stress response is what your body innately does to return itself back to order. So then all organisms in nature can tolerate a short-term stress. An animal gets chased by a predator. The moment the animal sees the predator, it turns on that primitive nervous system called the fight or flight nervous system. It goes into emergency mode. And when that sympathetic nervous system switches on, it mobilizes enormous amounts of the body's energy to deal with that stressor. Now here's my question. If you're being chased by Tyrannosaurus Rex, are you going to use 20% of your body's reserves, 50%, 75%, or are you going to go all in? 100%, yes? And you are going to utilize all your body's resources for survival. Now, if you outrun Tyrannosaurus Rex and you're in the cave, you may rest for a few days and allow your body to repair. But what if it isn't Tyrannosaurus Rex outside the cave waiting for you? What if it's your coworker right next to you and the desk right next to you? That every time you see your coworker, you turn on that fight or flight response. And when you turn on the stress response and you can't turn it off, now you're headed for disease. Because no organism in nature can live in emergency mode for an extended period of time. And with human beings, when you perceive a threat in your outer world, real or imagined, you draw from this invisible field of vital energy surrounding your body, and you turn it into chemistry, and the field around your body shrinks. Now, for the short term, you eat, you rest, you relax, your body builds its energy resources again. But if you're having stress reaction after stress reaction after stress reaction, would you agree you're going to continue to draw from this field, and you're going to become more matter and less energy, more particle and less wave. And now you are matter trying to change matter in your life. And you will always force outcomes, control outcomes, fight for outcomes, hope for outcomes, pray for outcomes, wish for outcomes, manipulate outcomes. Because you are matter trying to change matter. And the hormones of stress heighten our senses, and we become materialists. And the senses create separation. There's me here as an object in space and time, and there's you there. And we're separate. And if you look different than me, there's even more separation. Then there's me here, and then there's my dreams way over there. And people actually see their dreams away from them over there. One point of consciousness, another point of consciousness. And the separation between 2 points of consciousness creates time. And so the person then may want their new house, but they got to drag their body through space every single day and go to work, and it's going to take time for them to get their house. And then it'll take them 30 years to pay it off, and then they'll be too tired to enjoy it. But they created it, matter to matter. Are you with me still? Now, the hormones of stress arouse the brain and body to give it a rush of energy. And people become addicted to that rush of adrenaline. They need the problems in their life. They need the bad relationship. They need the bad job because it gives them a rush of energy. And they use the people and the problems in their lives to reaffirm their addiction to that emotion. You know what that means? They're addicted to the life they don't even like. Now, human beings, because of the size of the neocortex, can turn on the stress response just by thought alone. They can think about their problems, a predictable future worst case scenario, or a memory from the past, and they'll produce the same chemistry in their brain and body as if the event was occurring. Now, if you can turn on the stress response by thought alone, and those hormones are addictive, it means you can become addicted to your own thoughts. Yes or no? Now, it's a scientific fact that the hormones of stress downregulate genes and create disease. It's a fact. So if you can turn on the stress response just by thought alone, and the hormones of stress push the genetic buttons that create disease, that means your thoughts can literally make you sick. So my question is, if your thoughts could make you sick, is it possible then that your thoughts could make you well? Is that possible? Now, when you're under the gun of the fight or flight nervous system, and you're drawing from this invisible field of energy, and you're turning it into chemistry, and the field around your body is shrinking, when you're threatened by something in your outer world, all of your attention goes to your outer world. When the body gets a rush of adrenaline, all of your attention goes to your body. And when you're alarmed by those chemicals, you're always thinking about time. How much time do I have to get from here to there? The body, the environment, and time. And think about it. The more addicted you are to the hormones of stress, the less likely you're going to want to create. You know why? Because it's not a time to create. It's not a time to learn. It's not a time to open your heart. It's not a time to sit still and close your eyes and be prey. It's time to run, to fight, and to hide. And when the survival gene is switched on, remember this. Out of the infinite potentials in the quantum field that exist, you will select the worst case scenario in your mind. The worst possible outcome, and you will obsess about it. And then you'll think, oh, no, it could get worse. No, what if that happens? Because in survival, if you prepare for the worst, you have a better chance of living. And most people spend their entire life living in survival and preparing for the worst thing to happen based on their past memories. So then if you're sitting in your meditation, think about this, and your body is going, oh, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. This is right around the time I turn the news on, and I get angry at the political situation. And your body goes, wow, you're off schedule. Let me think of a reason to be angry. Would you agree then, the moment you notice your body craving those emotions, and you become aware of it, and if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, and you put your attention on that emotion, that you are siphoning your energy out of the present moment into the past, but when you become aware of it, and you return back to the present moment, you are disinvesting your attention and your energy out of the past and into the present. Yes or no? And then you think, well, that person in my life is creating all these problems. And then you think, well, I just want to get angry. And you settle your body back down into the present moment, and you take your attention off that person. Would you agree then you are calling energy back to you and building your own field? Yes or no? And what if your body says, I want to get up, I have to go to the bathroom, I need a cup of coffee, I'm not very good at this, I want to quit, and you notice your body wanting to get up, and you say to it, get back here, and you sit it back down? Would you agree then every time you do that, you're telling it it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind? Yes or no? And then if you're thinking about the people you have to see and the places you have to go and the things you have to do in your known life, and you become aware that you're investing your attention and energy into the known, and you stop and you return your attention back to the present moment, would you agree you're disinvesting your attention out of the known and making room for something unknown in your life? Yes or no? And if you keep doing this over and over again, over and over again, over and over again, just like training an animal, sooner or later the body's going to surrender. And when it does, there'll be a liberation of energy. And you will go from particle to wave, from matter to energy. And you will free yourself from the chains of the past. And now you'll be in the present moment, ready to create. And if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, and you have all of your attention in the present moment, you got a lot of energy to create with, now don't you? And we can actually predict this on a brain scan when it's going to happen. Scientists come and study us all the time, and I can look at someone's brain scan, and the scientist will be standing next to me, and I'll say, oh, she's going to pop. What? She's going to pop. What do you mean? She's going to pop. Watch this. And all of a sudden, you know, when you're living by the hormones of stress and you're aroused by those chemicals, you narrow your focus on something material because that's where the danger is. And people get stuck in this kind of narrow focus. How many people have been under stress and can't stop thinking about the same thought? That's because you're narrowing your focus. That's a survival gene. But people, when they're aroused like that, they're shifting their attention from one person to another problem, to another thing, to another place. And every one of those elements has circuits in the brain. And when you measure that on a brain scan, it looks like a very turbulent sea. The brain is incoherent. And when the brain is incoherent, you're incoherent. And when the brain isn't working right, you're not working right. And as you'll learn this weekend, when those chemicals of stress are running, you're stepping on the gas. The survival gene's saying run, fight, hide. And you're stepping on the brake at the same time, which means you're sitting there and doing nothing with those chemicals. And your heart is racing out of rhythm. And you stop trusting your heart. And the analytical mind goes into high gear. And I can tell you after all those brain scans, when you analyze your life within some disturbing emotion, you're going to make your brain worse. It happens every time because you are thinking in the past. Overcome those emotions, and the memory without the emotional charge is called wisdom, and that's the name of the game. And so then we can see then when a person starts making their way, we can start seeing when they go from a narrow focus, we ask them to take their attention off their body, take their attention off the people in their life, take their attention off the things they own, their cell phone, their computer, take their attention off the place they're sitting or where they need to be, and take their attention off time. When they do that properly, something amazing happens. We ask them to just focus on nothing, to open their focus from a narrow focus to an open focus, and connect to that invisible field called the unified field, and to pay attention to it, and to stay present with it, and to feel it, and to experience it, and to become more aware of it. And as they keep reaching and connecting to this field, this unified field, they can't think or they can't analyze. And as they sense that energy, and they're no longer thinking, all of a sudden we see the front of the brain start connecting to the back of the brain. We see the right side of the brain start connecting to the left side of the brain. And the brain begins to synchronize. And what syncs in the brain links in the brain. And when those two hemispheres come together, the union of polarity, the union of duality, the union of opposites is called love or wholeness. And at the exact same time, that person's heart goes into coherence. And when the heart goes into coherence, as you learn, produces a measurable magnetic field. Now, you're becoming more energy and less matter, more wave and less particle. And that energy is a frequency, and all frequency carries information. And that person lays the intent on that energy, and now they're broadcasting a whole new signature. And you can walk around and look at that person on the brain scan, and there are tears of joy rolling down their face. They feel so whole, so connected, that it's impossible for them to want. How can you want when you feel whole? You feel like you have everything you need. And that is the moment the magic happens. And that person gets a biological upgrade. So here's the observer that lives in you, that's loving you into life. You are an extension of it. You are connected to the field, and it is always present with you. And people spend their whole life having somebody, being someone, owning something, living somewhere, sometime. It's all about the identity that's identifying with three-dimensional reality. But the moment they become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, in no time, is the moment they are on the bridge to the quantum field. And I'm telling you, we have labored for 5 years to teach people how to do this, to get beyond themselves. And now, as they begin to pay attention to that field, and they begin to stay present with it, they're moving closer and closer to it. And they experience less separation and more oneness and wholeness. And if they stay present with it long enough, they will become the consciousness of everybody, of everyone, of everything, of everywhere, in every time. And if time is created by the separation between 2 points of consciousness, the closer they get to that unified field, the less time it takes for things to appear in their life. And some people run right into it. And when they run into it and they come back to their senses, they take a piece of it with them. They become more loving. It is a loving intelligence. They become more giving. It's a giver of life. They become more conscious. It is a consciousness. They become more mindful. It has an infinite mind. They become more willful. It has an amazing will. Its nature becomes their nature. Its mind becomes their mind. And they begin to experience what it means to be divine. And yes, it takes effort. It takes effort to get beyond ourselves. No doubt about it. But everybody who has that moment where they connect to the divine in them, there's nothing else they want after that moment. Because when you connect to it, it doesn't judge. It's not in its nature to judge. It can't judge. If it judged, it would divide itself, its wholeness and oneness. And people who run into it are humbled by its power. And they wake up every morning knowing that it's present with them, and they just want to experience more and more of it. The event that we did, the week-long event, just a few weeks ago in Sardinia, it was called The Love Affair with the Divine. I wanted people to come from all over the world, 48 different cultures, and I wanted them to fall in love with the divine. Now think about this. This is not flirting with the divine. You know, people flirt. This isn't like saying I'm going to show up for the date and not show up. I mean, if you are going to have a date with the divine, you have to bring your best. And every day they reached for it, over and over again, over and over again. And I gave them numerous opportunities to connect. And once they were able to connect, once they knew its signature, once they felt its presence, they placed their attention on it. The more they place their attention on that energy, the more it expands. And many people were healed in an instant, because there was less separation between their consciousness and the consciousness of the unified field. And so, in closing, I want to tell you that people around the world are waking up, and they're waking up to the understanding that they're more than their senses. They're waking up to the realization that they're the creator of their lives. They are not philosophers any longer. They're doers. They want to experience the fruits of their efforts. And it happens in every culture. It happens if you're vegetarian or not. It happens if you eat gluten or not. It happens if you drink wine or not. It happens if you're willing to make the time to connect with that giver of life. The side effect of those efforts will always be that you will become it. And the people in your life will notice something different about you, and people will begin to ask, what is it that makes you so different? And it's not about the way you look. It's not about what you own. It's about who you become. It's not about your wealth. It's not about your health. It's not about your success. It's not about your love life. It's about who you become in the process of creating. Thanks for listening.
Ya le voy a dar esto. Francisco, tenemos ¿cuántos? Cinco preguntas. Vamos a empezar ahorita por este lado, por favor.
Mi español es más o menos, pero Joe, muchas gracias por su plática, era excelente y muchas gracias por estar aquí en México. Tengo una pregunta, es que hace algunos años yo y mi esposa hemos investigado mucho de este tema porque su mamá estaba enferma y hemos encontrado algunas pláticas a través de Luis A. y Greg Braden de algunos temas similares que has platicado, pero y a través de esta he empezado de hacer un tipo de meditación, se llama Field-Based Prayer Meditation, en donde, como tú has platicado, es la conexión de tus pensamientos y la emoción a través de amor con la conexión de tu corazón y en una manera para sentir la manera de sus cosas están en el presente, pero a través de una medida de meditar. Es una combinación que has platicado del pensamiento y emoción y a través de meditar. Mi pregunta es, cuando yo hago esa es mi manera de hacer esas cosas diario, en una manera para no, ¿cómo explico bien? Huh? Okay, really quick in English. Is that okay? Okay. So I use this I call it the field-based prayer meditation. So doing this present moment feeling of the connection of the heart and emotion in a meditative form on a daily basis. What I encounter is how I do everything in that feeling of love, obviously. But to avoid this feeling of judgment and selflessness, and to still know, like as you talked about at the beginning of your talk, of this mission in your life or what you want to go for in the future, how do you distinguish that in a way that's selfless and with love and not trying to control the situation, so to speak? And then the second part of my question is the way that you teach meditative practice similar in that way, or is there a more profound way of connecting to the field. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, that's a big question, huh? Think about this. You only accept, believe, and surrender to thoughts that are equal to your emotional state. And you will never accept, believe, and surrender to thoughts that are not equal to your emotional state. As an example, back to your mother-in-law. Person gets a diagnosis like cancer. What's the first emotion they feel? Fear, yes? Or sadness. And they say, I'm going to beat this with their 5% of their conscious mind. Their conscious mind says, I want to beat this, but their body is feeling fear. Yes or no? So mind and body are in opposition, and they can say, I'm healthy, 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 all they want. But that thought is never going to get past their brainstem because it's not in alignment with the body. So you teach a person with practice, and it takes a lot of practice to get beyond the fear of death, to begin to create an elevated emotion like gratitude and measure it. And when they're in that state of appreciation or thankfulness, their body is believing, as I said, that the experience is happening to them or it has already happened. So they will accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts equal to that emotional state, and that's what begins to program their autonomic nervous system into a specific destiny. You got it? Point number 2, every thought has a frequency. Thoughts have frequencies. So if a person is feeling suffering and they say, I'm healthy, the thought can't travel on the energy of suffering. It's not the same. When the person begins to elevate their energy and open their heart, that elevated energy can carry the thought of health because it's the same vibration. Does that make sense? Okay, so now, to answer the second part of your first question, which was about your ability to be able to manage your emotional states. So let me see if I can answer this for you, for the group. So many people, when they go home to practice, to do the work, right? They think their brain is not wired to give thanks until they get something. So they say, yeah, I got the philosophy. But when they sit down and it comes time to open their hearts, they're conditioned and hypnotized into waiting for something to happen to give thanks. So in the beginning, it takes quite a bit of practice to raise your emotional state. But there's another element that's equally important, and that is taking your attention completely off your identity. In other words, if you are going to heal your body, you got to get beyond your body. If you are going to change some aspect of your personality, you got to get beyond your memory of your personality, who you think you are. If you're going to resolve some problem in your life, you got to get beyond the emotion of that problem to be able to change it. Because think about it. Every problem that you have in your life is created by some conscious or unconscious set of thoughts and feelings. So a certain level of consciousness has created the current problems in your life. Yes or no? So then people face off with their problems from the same level of consciousness, and the answer isn't there. The moment they start becoming conscious of their thoughts, they're changing their awareness. And when you change your awareness, you change your consciousness, and you can't have consciousness without energy. They become more conscious of their habits, what they say, how they speak. And as they become more conscious of those unconscious states, they change their energy. Now, they're at a greater level of consciousness than the consciousness that's created the problem. And if they keep deprogramming that program long enough, they'll come up with the solution to their problem because they're seeing it from a greater level of consciousness than the consciousness that's created it. Now, most people want to do that in one meditation. Like, I did a minute. Why isn't my bank account filled with money? I mean, people are that way. People are like, they want to do it once and they expect that they're going to be healed. And I always say to them, how long do you think it took you to get that health condition? Oh, it was 10 years of misery. I hated my job. I hated my marriage. I hated everybody. I was unhappy. I was suffering. 10 years of that. Oh, and one meditation. And you're going to go back to your normal self. If you're asking the question, why haven't I healed? You're still the old personality. The new personality would never ask that question. They're too busy being it. And so, this is the challenge to answer your question. And look, I deal with this every day. I work on personal change every day of my life. It's so important for us to use our senses to define reality. So we don't see the evidence of it in our life, immediately we say it didn't happen. And now we experience separation from it, from our dreams, and it's always at arm's length. The practice of doing this daily, the practice of conditioning your body, the practice of changing your mind, you have to come up against the limited aspect of yourself and be willing to go a little further. And I can tell you that that's when the magic happens every single time. So there isn't one meditation that we do in my work. We have, you come to my week-long advance, you're going to be sitting down doing a meditation, you're going to be walking on the beach, standing, you're going to be walking as it, standing as it, sitting as it, lying down as it. It's just going to become your habit. And when you walk from your room into the ballroom, you just might walk as your future self because that's the new habit. We use movies to create images for people to star in the vision of their future. Imagine, instead of watching a stupid, mindless television commercial that tells you that as you age, your immune system weakens, they're programming you for the very condition they have the solution for. Why not create a movie of your future where you're healthy and wealthy and free and traveling and loving life and around people that are cool? Why not just believe in that? So, in every way that we possibly can, we teach people how to become the vision of who they want to be. No one can then take it away from you. And I don't use Buddhism or Hinduism or Zen. I use science. I look at brain scans and say, that worked. I see that person struggling, I now know why. And so we create meditations based on signaling new genes. We create meditations based on creating brain coherence and heart coherence. Why? Because when you're coherent in brain and heart, and nothing in your outer world is going to remove you from that state, you're mastering your life. And you no longer belong to your past, you belong to your future. So we use meditation as a tool to get our brain and body right. So me, I'm a morning person. I'm an early morning person. Mexicans are going to sleep when I wake up. I mean, I get up at 4 in the morning and everybody's going to bed in Mexico. But me, I like the morning because that's the time where I can connect. And then the rest of the day, I'm connected. And it's a different day than when I don't do it. And so imagine, we have people, Howard Martin will tell you this. We've partnered with HeartMath so many times because if you're going to believe in a future that you're imagining with all your heart, it better be open and activated. And we got to know that you know how to do that. It's not just saying, oh, I opened my heart. No, you got to be able to sustain that state for 40 minutes. And when you can do it for 40 minutes with your eyes closed, you should be able to do it 40 minutes with your eyes open. And when you're sitting in traffic, instead of going, you're just saying like, now's the time for heart coherence. And then when your heart's open, you're like, that's the purpose of this. So you demonstrate greatness in your life so that you give people permission to do the same. That's what it's about. People will, because of mirror neurons, will say, hey, he's really different. I'm going to start acting like him. instead of Justin Bieber or whoever, you know what I mean. Somebody that can model greatness. And if everybody's doing it, wow, you have a community that's unstoppable. And I think that's how we change the world. Yeah.
Joe, después de un año de trabajar con tu libro, With the Habit of Being Yourself, yo he sentido ya el avance, el progreso, y en la medida en la que hay velocidad hacia adelante y aceleración, hay un momento de mirar para atrás y decir, bueno, ya llegué a algún punto. ¿Qué recomiendas? ¿Cómo trabajar con la sensación de estancarse o de disfrutar, digamos, ya haber llegado a un punto? Stagnation against the feeling of being already somewhere, hasta la visión. You get my point?
Ask me if I have difficult days.
¿Tienes días difíciles?
Lots of them. Many, many days. I've had so many dark nights of the soul. And you know what a dark night of the soul is? When you realize nobody gets you. When no one understands, when you realize that no one has the answers to the problems in your life but you, because they're not you. And you can ask somebody, what do you think? And they tell you, and you're like, they're not me. And you come up against yourself. This is when the soul begins to wake up. Now, I watched a woman on the beach in Australia a little over a year ago. I watched her connect to that intelligence. And it was so powerful, it brought her to her knees. I watched her fall to the ground and shake. This was not acting. This was an energy that was coming right through the top of her head. Now, she never missed a day of her meditation because she wanted it more than anything else in her life. And she's a very interesting person because she's very practical. And when I interviewed her, you know, she wanted to create wealth. And every day she worked on being worthy to receive. And when she got to the ATM machine to put her credit card in, before she could put her credit card in, one day, all these $100 bills just started flying out of the machine. Chum, 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 chum. Now she just kind of backed up, looked at all the $100 bills, didn't even pick them up, turned around and walked away because she created the experience. The guys behind her dove on the ground and grabbed the money, and she was just like, I did it. Now I know I can do it. Now, when she fell to her knees on the beach, and she felt, there's no other way to describe this but intelligent love, or a loving intelligence. It is not chemical, it is electric, and you will feel it in every cell of your body because your body's going to increase in frequency. It'll be the most familiar, unfamiliar feeling you've ever had in your life. I live for it. When she had that moment and she fell to her knees, she grabbed her cell phone and she was trying to articulate what was happening to her. But she looked back at herself in that moment and she saw all of the days, not her good meditations, by the way, but she saw all the days where she sat in the fire. And she saw all the days where she was challenged and she went a little further. And she realized that if she did not have those days, she would have never had that experience. And she fell in love with that person that was uncompromising. And it was her future self in that moment that was falling in love with her past self, that was drawing that past self to her. There's a future you that already exists. It is everything that you're dreaming of. And we come up against our limitations, and we either see them bigger than us or something that we have to persistently move through. And the only way you are going to arrive at that person that is the future you, that's more loving, more enlightened, more caring, more giving, more abundant, is that you have to become him. It's the only way you're going to get there. And every day, I don't care if you overcome one thought, that's the work. I have worked with things for years, and I thought, I just can't go any further today. And then I went further, and boy, oh boy, the lights went on. The show started. We have to come to the end of our belief, the end of our emotional belief, and finally surrender. And it's that act of surrendering where the greater mind steps in and says, he finally doesn't know. And when you finally don't know, you're in the unknown. And when you're too exhausted to really care when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen, it's when the surprise starts. I have sat with my body for hours. I have sat with it. I have witnessed the program. I have had days where I thought, there's no way I'm going to win. And I just kept working and working and working. And I got up and I thought, that wasn't my best today. But my day was filled with magic. Do you know why? Because my will matched its will. My love for life matched its love for life. My mind matched its mind. And that this intelligence isn't some white guy with a beard sitting up on a cloud with a laptop keeping score of all the things you do right and wrong. That's some limited belief that was created by men to control people. This intelligence is a balance between the greatest parent there ever was, the mother-father principle. And it's loving you into life. And it is so proud when you make an effort to connect with it that it doesn't keep score. So you never know when you think, we've measured people's brains. The person had tremendous energy in their brain and they came out of the meditation and said, I don't think I really did that well. We were like, are you kidding me? We haven't seen measurements like this in hardly anybody. And oh yeah, I did have a period where I was feeling pretty good. Well, yeah, you were. You have no idea. It's not a linear process. When David slays Goliath, there comes a moment when the will gets greater than the program. And when you make up your mind to do it and nothing's going to stop you, I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that were diagnosed with health conditions, and they turned it around. And I said, what'd you do? And they said, I just made up my mind that every day I was going to do it, and I was going to do it, and I wasn't going to be impatient. And you know what? You sit down the next day, and it's beautiful. All the efforts that you're making, all of a sudden you connect the next day, and you'll say, that was so worth it. And when I sat with my body, and I still do, for hours, and I don't think I can go any further, and I say, one more time, let's go. And boy, when my body finally surrenders to my mind, I always say the same thing. That was so worth it. It was so worth it, because I get up and I am so present that day. I have no worries. I have no concerns. I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I'm happy being myself. But it took an effort to get beyond the veneer, the program, and that's exactly what you're doing. My advice to you, change it up. Pick another meditation. Change it up. Keep mixing it up. Do the walking meditation. Take your body for a walk every day. Walk as your future self. Embody the energy of it. Feel it. Take it on. Every day, mix it up. And who knows, you may just enjoy yourself so much that it won't be effort any longer. Because if meditation becomes an effort, then you got to change that belief too. And as you keep changing them one by one, all of a sudden when you start seeing those things happen in your life, yeah, we all hit plateaus. I hit plateaus all the time. What do? I get up earlier, or I change it around, or I do something different, or I change it up. I change it up because you don't want to get stuck in the redundancy of doing it unconsciously. Play with it, mix it up, have fun with it. All right? One more?
No, tiene otra pregunta. ¿Otra?
Uno más.
Vamos a contestar una pregunta más, que allá está el micrófono, por favor. Sí.
Bueno, sí. Buenas tardes, mucho gusto, Joy, de finalmente conocerte. ¿Me escuchas bien? Hace como un año yo me entré en contacto con la información de tus videos, de tus audios. Descargué algunos en línea, compré videos. Los audios de las meditaciones y empecé a practicarlos. Me mantuve practicando alrededor de un mes. Hay uno de los audios que he preferido en inglés porque me gusta más escuchar directamente de tu narración, pero como en 1 minuto 34 hay una pronunciación donde repites una palabra y debo reconocer que mi mente, buscando los errores, casi siempre que la hago, estoy pendiente del momento que va a venir el error y eso me distrae. Entonces, eso me ha hecho que me nazca el motivo de la pregunta, ¿no? Porque el propósito de la meditación lleva el objetivo de traer la conciencia en diferentes partes del cuerpo y tener presente ese error en la grabación me ha hecho pensar en tal vez entrar en contacto para ver si puedo solicitar una que lo reemplace o plantearte si ese error me puede ayudar justamente a superar esa parte del patrón de pensamiento en donde es más fácil ver el error que ver todo lo correcto. Que esa es una de las cosas que me ha interesado cambiar, que creo que necesito cambiar en mi patrón. Debo decirte que cuando yo supe de tu metodología, no tardé mucho en convencerme porque yo viví una etapa así. Antes de los 35 años, sin meditación, las cosas me funcionaban muy bien. Yo me proponía algo y sucedía en mi vida. A los 3 días aparecía una persona que me daba la solución. Viví una etapa que yo sentía que el éxito estaba a mi alcance en muchos aspectos y luego después de los 35 cambió y cuando dices lo del pensamiento de los 35 como que hizo clic. Y tengo otra pregunta. La primera era que si me conviene solicitarte un audio continuo sin error o trabajar sobre esa parte. Y la otra pregunta es, después de un mes, noté que, debo decir que la primera vez que hice la meditación, la hice, yo quiero decir, excelente, todo lo que dijiste que tenía que ir pasando, pasó rapidísimo, pero conforme avancé al mes, empezaba a sentir hormigas, distracciones, todo lo que decías que la mente rechaza, el cuerpo rechaza el proceso, y me di cuenta que todos los días seleccionaba el mismo aspecto que cambiar. Y pienso, y mi pregunta es, ¿hay sugerencias, directrices o instrucciones de cómo manejar con uno mismo día con día, si conviene usar el mismo aspecto de cambiar o rolar los temas para tratar de que tu mente no se acostumbre y pueda ir avanzando? Esas son mis 2 preguntas y muchas gracias.
Well, don't do that meditation anymore. Stop it. I mean, look, there's so many meditations that we have now. There's lots of them that you can do. The early days, when we started recording, weren't as sophisticated as we are now with all the machinery and everything. So move on to another meditation, because if it causes you to think, then it's defeating the purpose in the first place. We don't want you analyzing anything. And when you start getting that analytical mind going, you never really change your brain waves. And we're working on changing your brain waves in those early meditations by resting your attention in different parts of your body and the space around your body. But all of that is a basic level training. Out of that basic understanding of how to do that, there are numerous meditations that stand on the shoulders of that basic meditation. And people always, write nasty emails to us, what is this space thing? What is it? All space, 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 space. You should see now when you come to a week-long advanced, at 1,000 people sitting in the room. and they're connecting, nobody's moving. Nobody is moving. They're statuesque. They're gone. They're elsewhere. They weren't always that way because they had to struggle with the process, but now they know how to do it. Particle, wave, matter, energy. Reality is both. You convergently focus. You do a convergent focus, you focus on matter. You do a divergent focus, you focus on energy. That is to create coherence in the brain. We've measured it thousands of times. Many people don't like that, so they just say, I'm going to skip over that and I'm too busy, I'm just going to get to the meditation. But if you skip over that, you never get past your analytical mind. So my recommendation is to switch to another meditation. Pick one that you don't get tripped up on. There's so many different ones. My recommendation is to come to a week-long event. You will leave that behind the second day and you'll be doing amazing things by the end of the week. It's just, sometimes if you come to an event where there's a lot of people and everybody's striving to overcome themselves, you don't feel like you're so alone, like I'm the only one that's having this problem. No. We all get challenged like that when we get stuck on certain things. So my advice is to switch to another meditation, because if you had a great experience the first time you did it, you should be able to reproduce that experience again. Secondly, I would suggest that that particular thing that you're trying to overcome is just an extension of an overly analytical person, right? You start out, you get stuck, you start thinking, and we all do that in our lives. But every time you catch yourself doing it, and you stop doing it, it's a victory. Every time you become conscious that you're not in the present moment, and you become conscious, it's a victory. And it's these acts over and over again that add up to one big victory. And in the beginning, it is taking on an unbridled stallion, a stallion that is untrained. As you continuously practice, you continuously do the work, each different area begins to settle down, and the voices in your head go with it.
Excuse me. Over the years, I have found this as a skill, like something that is really good. You're really good at finding the flaw, the small flaw, especially when we work with quality control in companies. And that is one thing that when they're hiring you, they're looking for people that have this skill. So on one side, it might be a good thing to have, but on the other side, in your regular life, it's creating a problem.
Don't get me wrong. I love my analytical mind. If I'm living my life and I have to make a choice, or I have to decide on something ethical, or I'm learning something new, I need my analytical mind to do that. I love my analytical mind. It gets in the way, though, a lot of times when I have to do inner work, and I just don't listen to it anymore. I say, oh, it's you again. All right, so we're going to settle you down. So what that's called in neuroscience is called a default mode network. The default mode network is the voice that's talking to you in your head all day long that you think is you. Like, what is that, right? That's the voice that talks. It's a network. Our research shows that when people do the meditations well, that voice goes away. The critic disappears. Now, not only does it disappear while they're doing the meditation, but it stays switched off the remainder of the day. So the critic isn't saying, oh, you don't look good enough, or you're too this, or you're too that, or people don't like you, or that person's bad. That voice is gone. It just disappears. So in the beginning, you battle your analytical mind because you're in the habit of using it in everything you do. And if you're mathematical, and you're technical, and you're detailed-oriented, then it gets a little bit challenging when you're doing the meditation because you're judging everything you're doing. Like, did I do that right? I don't know. Was that right? I don't know. That kind of goes on. That's the very voice you just have to overcome. And when you open your focus and you sense nothing, you can't think. And if you can't think, then you're not analyzing. And if you're not analyzing, you're changing your brain waves and slowing them down. And you did it the first time, and you felt it. So then, when you're no longer activating these circuits and you're slowing your brain waves down, you begin to merge with your autonomic nervous system. Your subconscious mind begins to move up into your neocortex, and the autonomic nervous system has one thing in mind: to create balance and order. So it says, he's gone. Let's get in here and create order here. And all of a sudden it starts to synchronize the hemispheres of the brain. The autonomic nervous system starts to synchronize the heart. All of a sudden the body's moving back into balance now. It's just like you do when you go to sleep. When you go to sleep, how do you go to sleep? You stop thinking. You get comfortable and you just kind of get in the blackness. And then boom, it's morning. So what I want you to do is do that exact thing, but don't fall asleep. I'm going to catch you right before then, between half awake and half asleep. And it's a practice. We have people, our community can change their brain waves in 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 9 seconds, 12 seconds. It's not like, hey, I'm getting the quantum field before you. It's not like that. They just know how to do it. And because they've practiced it enough times to be able to do it. And I can say, go into theta for the scientist here. And they'll say, okay, give me a second. They'll take a few breaths, and there they go. But it wasn't always that way for them. They came up against themselves, but now they know. So I wouldn't be so hard on yourself. Love your analytical mind, but when you sit down to meditate, the whole purpose of meditation is to get beyond it. Say, I'll come back and you can think when we're done. But right now, you're going to stop thinking. And if you keep practicing that, and just every time you become aware, you return back to the present moment, it's a victory. And those victories add up to winning the war. Thanks.
Y en nombre del comité organizador, le entregamos este reconocimiento al Dr. Joe Dispenza y agradecemos su presencia en este evento. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much.